Live from the Sycamore Room at the Norman P. Murray Community Center in beautiful Mission Viejo, it's Breakfast with Gary and Kelly, featuring the pride of Denmark, Saxman extraordinaire, Michael Lington.
I'll be there. I'm going to hold it.
Thank you very much. Welcome to Breakfast with Gary and Kelly, everybody. Glad you're here.
Yeah.
Glad you're here. What a fun morning we've had so far.
Yes,
really
we've
fun
had.
stuff. It's going to get better right now. It's gonna get better. I'm really excited to have this guy with
You're
us.
excited.
No, well, calm down. Calm down. This is a guy, every year that he has done the birthday bash, to me, his performance has just stood out among that whole sea of great performers.
Exactly.
And there is a real reason for it. He's got a brand new CD out that looks remarkably like this.
Oh, wow, the
It's
suit.
called Pure. I know, and he's really a good
Dang,
dresser.
that's
I've
a
used,
nice-looking suit.
I'm telling you. The CD sounds great. He sounds great. And
Yes,
we're going
he
to find
does.
out about it right now. Please welcome, everybody, Mr. Michael Lington.
Yeah. Woo. nice. Very good.
Hold that tower. That's the new CD.
Wow.
We'll be right back.
Very nice.
Gary and Kelly. I told you it was a good audience.
Yes, sirree.
Did I lie?
I would have guessed they were all still sleeping by now.
No.
Not our
No,
audience.
these are not
No.
all
Here.
musicians. Not everybody's a musician. Some people are actually awake at 11 o'clock in the morning.
I would still be sleeping if I wasn't here with you guys.
I
But,
understand.
And,
All right.
and he didn't wear black.
I know. See,
I know,
there's
but
no law,
he's got
Kelly.
a story. He's
I
got
know.
a story.
He does have a story. Hold on, though. Before we do that,
how
I
did
wanted
that
to make
come
you
up? So you guys
I
guessed,
bet him that you were going to wear black.
and how did you
because-
come to that?
Because I just thought you would wear black because you're a musician and most musicians wear black.
It's a very good guess because I actually was just wearing all black, but I changed to this. So
See, there you go.
But
Here.
no reason,
Okay.
but this just happened. That
I
way.
wanted to make you feel at home. Here's some creamed herring.
Oh boy, I haven't seen that in a long
Ew.
time.
No.
If you want to dig
Actually,
in,
that's
go ahead.
is that
You
usually
gonna pass?
refrigerated?
A little early.
A little early for that,
Is
but
it?
I used to eat this stuff all the time. This is, let's see, sour cream herring, but I
Yeah.
used to eat the one that has curry and
Is it not-
tomato. This is like from my home country of
That's-
Denmark.
of
Very
Denmark, there you go,
Is there
see?
any other place to eat herring but there?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't, but I love it. I've had it.
How long
It's
has
been
it
a while.
been in that desk?
How long is it? I don't know. I found it in the desk, actually. It could be, God only knows how old that might be. Oh, man.
How fun.
This CD, you called in everybody.
Yeah,
I mean,
pretty much.
You've got, this is remarkable. I mean, Culbertson, Lee Rittenauer, Paul Jackson Jr., Jeff Golub, Ray Parker Jr., Butler,
Michael Bolton.
Michael Bolton.
Yeah.
I was going to get to
Yeah.
that, too.
Well, it is a lot of fun having very talented friends. I'll tell you that. And this whole album, the whole idea is that I wanted to create that live feel.
Yeah.
You know, I always get asked doing the live shows, how come we can't get that on a CD? It seems like the CDs are like watered
Okay.
down a little
Yeah.
bit. Or
Yeah.
So that's what we did. We went into the studio, recorded live with Ricky Minor and the Tonight Show Band.
Oh, my.
And then we added a bunch of guests, like you just mentioned, and there's a record.
How fun.
Yeah.
So this is not emailing tracks back and
No.
forth across the country.
You know,
this
that's
is the real
They-
deal.
That's the
Absolutely.
real deal. And the funny thing is, my previous albums were a little bit like that, where you collaborate with people
Yeah.
across the country. It was so funny. I'll tell you a story on back in 2004, and back then it was sort of groundbreaking for me to be able to do that. I was
Sure.
a little late with the computers, by
Oh,
the way.
no.
But there was a song on my Stay With Me album called Two of a Kind, which ended up being
yeah.
a big single for me.
Right.
And the guy I wrote it with, I had never met. And we wrote this song together over the internet, and we would send hard drives back and forth to each other. And at one point, the hard drive disappeared
Oh,
with all the music
really?
on, but it turned up again. And the song ends up being a single, being on the radio. If I walked down the street and saw him, I could still.
To this
we would
day,
not-
you would-
No. We end up
How
actually
did you
meeting.
meet him? First off, I mean-
Actually, I ended up performing at the Beacon Theater in New York, and he was from New York, and he came to the show.
Okay.
But I just thought it was so funny that now the modern day technology,
Right.
that you're able to make records that way,
Yeah.
and that's the way we did it.
Did
yeah.
you take any video of your actual recording when you had everybody in the studio?
For this album, yes.
You
and,
did?
And I posted along the way.
Yeah, you
so-
had a lot of stuff up on
Yeah.
Facebook that showed
Okay.
this.
Well,
Yeah, fun.
everywhere, because I think people really wants to see the process, and it's a lot of fun when you got everybody in the studio
Oh,
and can see how
yeah.
things come together. Yeah.
Oh,
It is.
yeah.
And you really took advantage of that. I mean, this wasn't just recorded that way. I mean, you were writing that way, right?
Writing that way too, yeah. Very different from my other writing. A lot of times ideas come about. One writer writes a verse, I'll finish the chorus, and it's all done electronically over email. And
Yeah.
this one, I got together with writers. We had no idea what we were going to be doing. We just sat in the studio and said, let's just come up with something. And it's a scary process because you could be sitting just looking at a guy and nothing comes out. And then
That
4
happens
hours
to
go
me
there
all
and
the
says,
time.
oh, well, I'll see you next time. And,
I know.
And you know, that stuff happened too. You know, you have no, it's always best to try to have little something to start with. I didn't want to have I wanted to be outside my comfort zone with both writing and recording this
Yeah.
album. And
Wow.
we basically just made very little templates going in and recording it. I didn't want to make full demos.
Sure.
I wanted to go in there and I wanted to work it out with Ricky and the Tonight Show Band and just see what would happen.
How long did it take you? What was the time frame?
For making this album?
Yeah.
Well, Well, it actually took me a year to make this album because I wrote an entire album and then decided that I was not going to do that album and rewrote it, and that's what that came about.
Really?
So yeah,
Oh.
so
What
it was
happened to the other one?
It's I don't know. It's in storage somewhere. You know,
It'll show
but,
up on a
yeah,
CD
it'll
later
show up.
someplace, yeah.
But yeah, so that's. I just had this feeling that I wanted to do this high energy, live, fun record, and that's what we did.
Yeah.
Nice.
Tell us. Let's talk about your relationship with Michael Bolton a little bit. By the way,
Oh, yeah.
great news that we can announce right now. I think this thing just was put together yesterday, wasn't
Inked
that?
it.
Yes, yeah.
He will be. Michael will be appearing with Michael Bolton at the Hyatt Regency Newport Beach on August 3rd, right?
Yeah,
there.
well,
So
we're
that's,
actually we're doing
that
a
is
show.
gonna be-
We're each doing a show.
Yeah.
And you know why that is different than what we've been doing is because for the last 2 years I've been on the road with Michael, and I've done a little segment of my music in the middle of his show, and then played a couple of songs with him. But this particular show, and this is what we're trying to do more of, is basically both of our bands together, and then we'll still jam together at the end. But so I'm excited about that,
Yeah.
and it's going to happen August 3rd at the Hyatt Newport for the jazz series down there. I'm very, very excited
Yeah,
about that.
as
Yeah,
you
it's
should
really,
be.
really
Yeah.
cool.
As you
yeah.
should be.
And also, you know, we it was kind of a funny thing. You know, he is on my new album.
Yes, he is.
And how we made that happen was I asked him if he would consider singing a song, and he says, yeah, but then you have to play on my record. You know, we'll do that as a trade. I said, let me think about that. Yes. Yeah. And so that worked out okay. I don't know if it was an even trade, but, you know, I'll take it. Yeah.
You guys have been doing you've been doing a lot of stuff together the last couple of years.
Yeah, actually, we have been on the road together for 250 days
Oh my
for the
gosh.
last 2 years. So you know,
Wow.
consecutively
Holy moly.
500 days. So.
How did you hook up with him? I mean, did you know him, or did he get a phone call?
I got a call to come down and meet him because he was looking for somebody that could do this little segment in the show, so he
Okay.
can take a little break during the show, and he does a wardrobe change, and then he does some moving around. And
Yeah.
Kelly will be doing a
So-
wardrobe change shortly.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
No, it's not really. She's
Makeup.
gonna.
Is that when I'm going to play the next song?
Exactly,
She's doing okay. Well, I'm
exactly.
used to it now. So yeah, but so he was looking for somebody that sort of could take over a little bit. And when we met, that was just a great synergy. And
Yeah.
we
Nice.
jammed a little bit together on the song "Soul Provider." And he says, "Could you come out on the road with me for 6 weeks?"
Uh-oh.
And here we are. It's
2 years
yeah,
later.
2 years and something later. Yeah.
What a
Oh,
great
nice.
voice.
Oh yeah, and still to this day, just as
Yeah.
strong as ever. Yes.
Just, yeah, you have really worked with some of the great voices that are out there. A guy who has become a dear friend of us in the show is Bobby Caldwell.
Oh,
when
sure.
he first came
Yeah.
out here.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I got my beginnings with Bobby, and in 1994 I took over from Boney James in Bobby's band, and it's an interesting story with Bobby Caldwell. His saxophone position has become the sort of the springboard for contemporary sax
Yeah.
players. It started with Richard Elliott, then Dave Koz, then Boney James, then me. So it's been a wonderful,
Wow.
history in that band. And Bobby is a amazing singer, you know,
Isn't he?
and
Yeah.
ended up singing on my first album as well. We did
Yeah.
"Tell It Like It Is," the song
yeah,
"Tell It
yeah,
Like
yeah.
It Is," and but he really, you know, it's so interesting. He really got me started. I really had no idea prior to that anything about smooth jazz and contemporary jazz. So I just got the gig with Bobby. I didn't even know who Boney James was at the time.
How old
And-
were you?
21.
And were you into that kind of music? I'm
Okay,
just curious.
25, fine.
I was just curious because, how did you grow up? Did you grow up in a rock and roll world or a classical
Oh, no.
world or?
No, I got my beginnings as playing casuals, and casuals is like weddings and corporate
Okay.
parties, and so you play a little bit of everything. You play pop.
And what were you listening to at the time?
Well, I was listening to a lot of R&B and rock and pop at the time, but I knew about Bobby Caldwell. I just wasn't familiar with the whole radio format and the smooth
Right.
jazz. It wasn't until I got my beginnings with him that he said, "You should make a record." And then, of course, we're out there doing jazz festivals, and it's all sponsored by the radio stations. And then all suddenly, I see this whole world. But he really was the one that suggested very early on,
Okay.
you need to make a record. And I was like, well, how do I do that? Well, we'll have to figure that one out.
Yeah.
But we did. And
What a
Wow.
good guy he is.
oh, he's great. He's fantastic, yeah. I just saw him the other day. I went and did Tell It Like It Is with him when he was playing in Los Angeles. Yeah, and it's great.
Yeah,
it's fun.
yeah.
And then I went on the road with Randy Crawford, who was one of my I loved. Growing up in Copenhagen, I was listening to everything Randy Crawford, and to get the opportunity to tour with her all over the world, and actually go back. This was my first time returning to Copenhagen, and that was with her. And we had the same manager, so I ended up opening up all those shows for her, and what a thrill that was! That was so amazing.
Just amazing. Who else was in that band? Sample by any chance?
No, because that was. Sample she's out touring with Joe Sample and his trio now, but back then it was let's see, it was a little while back, but a really good friend of mine and co-writer of some of my songs, Roberto Valle, and Enzo Tedesco, Leon Biscara, great players.
Nice.
Alan Hines, great players. Yeah.
So you were born in Copenhagen.
Yeah.
And when did you come to the United States?
When I turned 21, so obviously I can't be 21 anymore since that was. But you
It was just a few years ago,
You really
huh?
want to get to that
No,
age thing,
not at
right?
all. I just like to hear people's backgrounds on how they became who they are. And obviously, back when you were in a grade school.
I just turned 21, and I just had this desire to come to America, and
play the sax.
Yeah,
or just
to play the
come?
sax. Just wanted to live here, play the sax, do whatever I could. I had envisioned maybe one day I would get a tour with an artist or a recording artist. I had no idea at the time that I was going to be making albums later on.
Really?
Yeah, that blew my mind.
What,
I had no
as
idea.
in grade school and high school, what were your dreams and passions? Was it a
Well, I
saxophone
started
or-
on clarinet,
Okay.
so I was classically trained. So I didn't, again, that was a whole other thing. I didn't think I was going to be into to pop music or jazz or. But
Well, your grandfather was a band leader.
well, yeah.
Right?
I mean, I
Well, you probably
definitely.
knew that, though, didn't
Well, yeah, but I definitely knew I wanted to be in music. I just didn't know. When you're 13, you don't really know what you're doing. You're just playing. But around 15, 16, I was done with the clarinet. Wanted nothing to do with that. It was all about saxophone at that point. And I tell you, the reason I picked the saxophone when I heard an album with David Sanborn and Bob James called Double Vision.
Okay.
And that was like for me going,
That's it.
that's it right there.
Okay.
Yeah, forget about the clarinet.
There you go.
In the closet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How fun.
Explain about the Tivoli Boys Guard. I
Right.
don't know if am I saying that right?
Yeah, the Tivoli Boys Guard. Yeah, it's like a miniature guard of the Queen's Guard, and they basically they're inside this very old amusement park called the Tivoli Gardens, where very interestingly Walt Disney got his inspiration for Disneyland through this park. This park dates back all the way to the 1800s. But inside there, they have a boys' guard, about 100 boys from 9 to 16, and they march around. They in full uniforms and
With the
with the hats,
and
with
the
the full
whole
thing. Yeah, it
shooting
looks
match,
just
yeah.
like the Royal Guard or of England or the Danish Queen Guard. So just little guys,
Yeah.
And so I was there for 7 or 8 years and got my beginnings there. Yeah, that was but it was clarinet, so it was a different sort of.
The clarinet.
Yeah.
Yeah. I played the clarinet.
Yeah.
I did.
Clarinet,
How
clarinet,
different
clarinet is
is-
fun, just not when you're 16 years
No.
old.
How much of a difference is it playing the clarinet and the sax?
Well, it's the same family of instruments, but I was playing classical music at the time, and I just lost interest in that and wanted to play R&B and blues.
Yeah.
But it's the same sort of fingerings, and it's
could probably
it's
take one
similar.
of
Yeah.
I mean, it's obviously a different sound. I mean, the sax is kind of acknowledged as the thing closest to the human voice. So.
Yes, it's actually named after the human voice: baritone, alto,
Yeah, right.
soprano.
Wow.
So it's a very expressive instrument. And you know what's cool about the sax is that it can be applied in so many different styles.
Yeah.
It almost fits in anything.
So all those great vocalists that you've played with
Right.
have to have influenced your playing too. I
Oh,
would
very
think.
much so. I've always connected with vocalists because of I like to try to tell a story with my saxophone and lyric. I mean, just melodically and phrasing wise. So I've, just, as I said, Randy Crawford, listening to when I grew up, Ray Charles, great jazz and blues singers and R&B singers. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Wow.
Michael Lington is our guest. We're thrilled to have you here. We're going to take a break and come back, and he's going to do a couple of tunes for us here.
Yeah.
Breakfast with Gary and Kelly. Michael Lington, everybody.
Wow.
Welcome back to Breakfast with Gary and Kelly, everybody. And this is where it really
This is
gets
the fun
good.
stuff.
Yeah,
Oh,
this
yeah.
is the
This
good
is the
stuff.
fun
This
stuff.
is the good stuff. What are you going to do for us, man?
How about my brand new single, Road Trip?
How about it? That would be the number
Yeah.
one single. That would be the number one song this week, ladies and gentlemen. All right?
Yeah.
Michael Lington right
All
here.
right.
Knock it
Thanks.
out of the park, baby. That
Exactly.
is great stuff. That is great stuff.
Number one. Wow.
They're digging it.
No wonder.
Number one song, man.
No wonder. No wonder.
You got another one in you?
Yes. Let's go back to my previous album, Heat, and do a song called You and I.
Oh,
You and I.
yeah.
What
All
happened?
right. Michael Lington,
Okay.
You and I.
You and I. I and you.
We're going to take a break. We'll be right back with Michael Lington here on Breakfast with Gary and Kelly. Stick around. My goodness.
Wow.
My goodness.
That's chilling. Wow.
We are back here with our very special guest today, Michael Lington. Look at this.
What
this is a very nice,
beautiful
very nice box that says Michael Lington Classic on it.
Right?
Ooh, and that's not
The seal has already been broken, so I don't feel bad doing this. But look at this stuff. Look at this. A little cigar action, huh? What do you think?
Wow.
What do you think, huh? Here, give one of those to Kelly.
Oh,
I know
give
she's
me
been
one.
jonesing for one of these. Look at that. That's a great look.
I have a cutter.
I bet you do. I don't think we want her to break that out.
I
Wow,
have
these
this
are
one?
gorgeous, man.
Did
we
you
can
make
smoke
these?
it, right? Or no?
Yeah, did you roll these yourself
Yeah,
on,
myself.
on the way here?
Right at my own house.
Yeah.
So
What's the deal with this?
Yeah.
They're actually they're made in Honduras, and it's sort of a passion of mine that I've had for years and years. Is to have my own, actually to smoke cigars, but then one day to have my own little private line of cigars. And I'll tell you who I actually can thank for really getting it off the ground, and that's Dave Koss. Because in 2006, on his cruise, Dave Koss and friends at sea, he says, well, why don't you host a party, nothing to do with music, to make it something else. I think David Benoit is making martinis. What are you going to do? So I said, well, why don't we have a cigar party? And we'll listen to some jazz, some straight-ahead jazz music, and smoke cigars and sip brandy or whatever.
Yeah.
And he says, love it, let's do it.
So this is a typical night for a musician. You guys all get together. This is what I'm getting at here, right?
Does cognac
Drinking
or
and
Drambuie
smoking
come
and
into the
carousing.
picture at all?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I like to dip it in Drambuie.
You can dip it as much as you want.
I do.
Good night, everyone.
I do.
There's our lawsuit of the day right there. That's the one we were looking for. Sorry. Go ahead.
Where were we?
I don't know. I got no idea.
We were talking about cigars in the party.
Yeah, right.
Cigars, the party, Dave Koss, the boat.
So I had a friend that was in the tobacco industry, cigar industry, and I asked him, can we make this little private line for this particular event? It was only meant to be for the event.
Yeah.
That's it. It went so well. We had so many people. We sold a lot of cigars, and people were asking, where can we buy more?
Yeah.
We didn't have any more. So when I got back from the cruise, I told my buddy out in Connecticut, who is helping me with this cigar line, I said, let's start a company. Let's just have them available. And it is. We have two different, we don't like to call them flavors because they're not flavored, but there are two different blends of tobacco.
Okay.
And this one is called Classic. We have another one called Connoisseur. And
What's the difference?
well, the difference is the Classic is milder, it's lighter, and the Connoisseur is it's darker, and it's a little stronger.
Okay.
So we just redesigned all our packaging.
This is beautiful.
And
It's very classy.
excited. It's not actually we're just finishing up setting up the whole website and all of that stuff, but there's something that you guys can check out on michaellingtoncigars.com.
Nice.
And
This
we're
is
just
for
getting
me, right?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely,
right.
yeah.
What?
Do you smoke cigars?
I do.
Once a very, very infrequently.
So
Yeah.
what are you
I'll
going to do
take
with a
'em.
box of cigars? then?
No, I know exactly.
If he
Give 'em to
doesn't
Kelly,
smoke
apparently.
them, I
You'll
will.
take them.
Yes,
Okay,
I
great.
will.
Okay.
I don't smoke them very often, but when I do,
Yes.
I do.
So how long ago was this?
With
How
Drambuie.
many years?
Well,
now
we
since
started
this?
the company in 2006, and we just still continue. The idea is to continue growing it and make more lines,
Yeah.
and it's just such a fun thing for me to do it. You know, the way about creating the cigars and the look and feel and everything, it's very much like making an album. It's the same creative process you go through. So coming up with the flavor or the blend of the cigar, it's like writing the songs.
Yeah.
And then you got the packaging. It's just like taking the photos for the So
like your
it's the
logo.
whole. It's kind. I look at it at the same process. I love the creative process of doing something like this, and then finally, before you know it, you got the finished product, and you're going, how did I get here? But it just always worked out.
I love your logo.
Yeah,
Well, thank you.
The M
Thank
with
you.
the L
You like
in
that
between.
one?
What's your middle name?
My middle name is actually the same as my grandfather, Otto.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
you can't put an O in there somewhere. That's okay.
Well, you could, but we didn't.
Thought I'd ask. M-O.
She's redesigning your logo.
Yeah.
No, the
Okay,
M-L, the M and then the L. That's really cool. That's really
Exactly.
nice.
That's wild.
Classic. All right, this is mine.
Do we have any cigar smokers out in the audience? Okay.
Oh, look at that.
Well,
See?
maybe-
See how they are?
Yeah, maybe we could pass out a couple of cigars for
Yeah,
the ones
Gary.
that are interested. You know.
Absolutely.
Yeah, see?
Absolutely.
You guys can all have a cigar party.
That's right. That's
We could all
right.
bond
So you
together.
said you were going to. So you're selling these. You're going to a cigar party. You said that later on tonight, right?
Yeah. I'm going to be hosting a
Oh.
cigar event out in Palm Springs at the Riviera in connection with the Jazz Festival that they have
Yeah.
there today. We're doing a little pre-cigar Michael Lington Cigar Party Hang.
Wow.
And I'm on my way out there right after
Very
the
nice.
show. Yeah, so
Very nice.
you know, it's gonna be. See, it's fun being able to just show up and don't have to worry anything. All you got to worry about smoking a cigar. How difficult can that be? You know.
They're not gonna.
A break from the travails and the awful life of a musician.
Right,
Really.
right.
They're not going to pull you up on stage if you have your saxophone in the trunk of your car.
Probably, but you know, we'll go with
They
that
will.
later,
They
yeah.
will. You know they
You
will.
know, it's so funny about that because it's every time I go. Sometimes I just want to go and see music, and people always expect me to have my saxophone with me at all times. So I'll be
course.
going to some
You're a
event going,
saxophone player.
how can you show up without the saxophone? And it's like, well, if there was a carpenter in the audience, would you ask him where his toolbox is? I mean, I just don't have it with me at all times. So
Well, maybe you should switch to the tuba.
Yeah, right.
You know, if you do that.
I have it right here.
Yeah, that's right. I just happen to have my tuba with me here.
But yeah, no. Well, I have no excuse tonight because
Yeah.
I have the sax with
Yeah,
me. So
they're
we'll
gonna get
see,
you
we'll
up.
see
They
what
will.
happens. Yeah,
They
it's going to
will.
be a great show too tonight with David Pack, Jeff Gollop, and Mindy Hebert. So
Oh,
yeah, it
nice.
should be great.
Yeah, that whole little package.
Yeah,
is
that
great.
sounds nice.
That's
Yeah.
Oh, how
So
fun.
we should have some good fun out there.
Tell us about some of the. I mean, you have played in some of the great rooms of the world. I mean, you mentioned the Beacon Theater; it's a great place. But
Right,
you know, I'm
right.
thinking of you've played at the Royal Albert Hall. I mean, that's got to be just an unbelievable thrill to hit that stage.
Well, those are the moments where you're going, how did that happen? You know, how I could have never imagined when I left Copenhagen back in 1990 that, 15 or 20 years later, I'd be playing at Royal Albert Hall. And another thing just happened on this I just came back from a 3-week tour in Australia, and I did 2 nights at the Sydney Opera House. And
Oh,
it was
did you really?
Yeah,
Wow.
And it was one of those things you
That's
also
a
going,
beautiful
how,
place.
how did that happen?
Yeah, that's a
you know,
gorgeous
and
venue.
I always tell people, be careful what you wish for because it just may come true.
Yeah.
And that's the blessings of being in my business is there's a lot of hard work because you have to travel all over the place. We don't sleep till 11 o'clock every day.
I know.
So traveling and so on, but all suddenly those moments make it worth it.
Yeah.
You know?
So when was that moment for you when you actually realized that you either heard your song on the radio or you actually made it to where you are?
Well, there's been there's been different stages in my life and career where there have been significant moments. I think when I first started touring with Bobby Caldwell, I knew that was a path that was going to be really great. Of course, then I toured with Rainey Crawford, went back to Copenhagen and performed with her there. That was real special for me, as you can imagine. It's a bit of a validation. You know, it's like I'd left people like, what are you doing over there? And all of a sudden, I'm back in Copenhagen performing.
Were you like a superstar back in Copenhagen?
No, because I left when I was 20 years old. I'd done some of those Eurovision Song Contests. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but not really. And so it was sort of a big homecoming for me coming back there. Getting my first recording contract was amazing. Making my first album, and of course there is that you mentioned about hearing my song for the first time on the radio, and I just want to tell you,
and them saying your name too.
Well, I was probably more excited about hearing the song on the radio. And I tell you guys a very funny thing. The first time I heard it on the radio, now keep in mind that when we make these albums, we probably listen to the songs about 1,000 times, right? Between writing and recording and mixing. So it's not like you don't know the song. So I'm driving down Los Angeles and listening to the wave in Los Angeles. My song comes on, and I have to pull over. I can't take it. It's just it's too exciting. Yeah. And I'm sitting in my car jamming out to my own song. And it's like I know every tambourine hit and cowbell hit and everything there is to know about it. Well, there was no cowbell on this one. I just threw it in there. But
down, Kelly, down.
Yeah, but there was a tambourine. But no, but it's just so funny. And that feeling where you're going, I mean, that is so surreal.
What did you do after the song was over?
I just sat there and took it in, and then I went on with my business. But every album I do, every song that gets released, that feeling, that special feeling, never goes away. You'd think, oh, okay, well here it is again. No. I mean, you could listen. They could play the same song all over, and you wouldn't get tired of it. It's just,
Wow.
I don't know what it is. It's just such an amazing feeling that something that started with absolutely nothing all suddenly ends up on the radio.
Yeah.
It's so beyond what I do. Do you know what I mean? It's,
Yeah, I
there's so
do.
many elements and so many things that has to happen in order for that to happen. So.
Do you remember the first song that you ever wrote?
No, I don't remember the first song. I remember the first song I wanted to record on my first album, and that was not one of my songs, but that was a song called Harlem Nocturne,
Oh.
which was such a great
Yeah.
saxophone song. And I remembered if I ever were going to make a record one day, I knew that song was going to be on that album, and it was.
Yeah.
I recorded, yeah.
Good stuff.
Very
Yeah.
nice.
I am this morning is it happens so often is really going fast. We are going to take a break and come back and have you play another song for us if
Sure.
you would be so kind.
Oh, I'd be happy
Michael
to.
Lington here. I'm
Yeah.
Gary Kelly. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Breakfast with Gary and Kelly. We are going to pass out
Aren't
some of
these
these
pretty?
cigars. Some of them.
Some of them.
Some of them. Not all of them.
We'll have to have a raffle. Whoops.
Oh,
Sorry.
Oh man, you know.
Sorry.
By the way, just as long as I had to pick that up, this would be the new CD that includes the #1 song in the nation
Yeah.
right now.
And you're going to have these for sale.
Yeah. Oh
After
yeah.
the-
Absolutely.
Kelly was playing touch football with my son.
Yeah, she is. Yes,
I
she
didn't want
is.
to bend over.
You know. Oh God, here we go again. I'm telling you. All right, what are you
So-
going to do for us?
How about another song from my new album, Pure?
Yes.
This one is called Playtime.
Very
Oh,
nice.
perfect.
Playtime. Michael Lington here.
Perfect.
about that? How about that?
Damn, that was
You know?
awesome. You got
Nice, huh?
Standy Doe. Standy
Look
Doe.
at that.
Look at that.
Great, great stuff. The new CD is called Pure. Michael Lington. Very nice. All right, we got some cigars for you. Thanks, everybody, for being here.
Yeah.
We'll be back in a couple of weeks.